I'm good. How are you?
How are
You're
you?
doing okay.
How are you doing? I'm good. Are you ready? Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. How have you been? Are you ready for the show? Are you
Yeah,
ready to
I've
talk about
been good
people
and I'm more
pleasers
than
and
ready
everything?
if you are ready.
Okay, so let me just quickly say to those of you who have joined, I think there's like one person, I think there were two people who have joined. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome to Divulge Talk Show. My name is Mbandi and I'm joined by the beautiful Sithole. So today we're going to be talking about people pleasers. And it's just a topic that we decided to talk about because, as young people want to please other people, and many times we lose ourselves in the process. So yeah, thank you, Joy, for joining me today. You are welcome to the Boss
Finally.
Talk Show. Finally, yeah. So before we get into everything, just introduce yourself, tell the world who you are, what you
Okay,
do,
hi
and then we
everyone.
take it from
As
there.
mentioned before, my name is Joy Sithole. I am currently a medical student and I'm studying in the Caribbean right now. I'm in my third semester of medical school, so I'm almost done. And then soon enough, I'm going to be doing practical work, and after a couple of years, I'll be a doctor. And that's about me. Another thing, a reason why I was excited to be on the show is
That,
because I'm really passionate about psychiatry and psychology, and this topic is something that's close to my heart, and I felt like I could talk about that, yeah, with you.
yeah, that's actually very important because sometimes we can blame a situation and yet maybe mentally there's something going on, especially when it comes to the situation whereby we love to please people and everything. So, so tell us more about yourself and your journey, especially related to people pleasing. Have you ever been in a situation whereby you did something to please your friends or to please any
I
other
feel like
people in the
everyone
space
has. I feel like we
surroundings?
all have this need to be liked or wanted or accepted, and oftentimes we betray our own values just to make other people happy. So yeah, they have been a couple of instances where I've kind of ignored what I wanted and did what other people wanted, just to make them happy, so that they can accept me.
Yeah.
But as for experience, the people pleasers, I've met people who are way worse than me, I guess you could say. For this one case I can think of right now, there was this certain individual. He was a friend of mine, and he had basically like a rough upbringing and a tough time actually connecting with people. And so the only way he to connect with
Oh,
people was by mirroring their
yeah.
actions, by mirroring their emotions. He didn't really know how to express himself, so he'd express himself by copying how you're expressing yourself. So that was like an extreme case. Is and it's good, at
Yeah,
first, because if you're on the receiving end of the people pleasing, obviously you're going to be happy, like, oh, this person always makes me happy, they always do things that I like, they're always trying to
yeah,
put my needs first. So it's fun at the beginning, like, yay, but eventually you start to realize that you care about this person, you want them to have the same feeling as well. And oftentimes the people pleasers, they don't get that for themselves.
yeah.
Mhm.
That's very true. And I also feel like sometimes the environment we grew up in, whereby maybe if you do something and then maybe your family is like, oh, what will
Exactly.
people think if you wear that, as an example? Or you hear elderly people say, I want to buy that house, I want to buy the castle that they can see. And sometimes you're not even, the main point is to make yourself happy because you've achieved these things, but then now you want ABC out there to see what you have achieved. So that's actually like a problem. I would actually love for you to share some of the psychological problems or whatever that leads to people wanting or having to
Okay,
please
well,
other
it
people
all
and not
comes down to
themselves.
one thing. If someone is really obsessed or really wants to please other people and make them happy, it always stems from the same roots. It always stems from a low self-esteem. And low self-esteem, as we know, can be caused by a whole lot of things. It could be neglect during childhood. It could be never feeling like you were ever wanted. It could be anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, all those other mental disorders that end up affecting the way a person looks at themselves and ends up changing a person's mind process. And so they believe they're not worthy of anything unless someone tells them they are. So they don't have a strong enough self-awareness of themselves. They don't have a strong enough self-worth and self-love to be able to be comfortable within themselves and their own achievements. So they might achieve things. They might actually be extremely successful people. They could be rich. They could be popular. They could be anything. But all those things that they have are a product of them doing it for other people. So you find that at the end of the day, they're not really happy in their situation. No matter how great it looks on the outside, they're not doing it for themselves. And that's the main issue.
Okay, so what can they do to actually try and overcome? I mean, I do have a few points here. Okay, before we get to that, can you share some of the symptoms of people pleasing? Because sometimes I might do something and not know that I'm actually a people pleaser. Perhaps because I grew up in an environment whereby it's normal to dress up for other people and not to make myself happy. So what are some of the signs or symptoms that you can share with us that perhaps someone might have them?
Okay, so a few signs. The first being that you feel constantly pressured to make people happy, and you feel that their emotions are all dependent on you. So if you want to make them happy, you want to make sure they're not sad. So you feel an extreme burden. I guess that's how to explain. You feel an extreme burden to be responsible for everyone's feelings and emotions. Another one would be you have your own opinions and you have your own beliefs. However, you don't have a problem whatsoever disagreeing with your own inner thoughts as long as, to help someone else out. For example, let's say you're a very shy person and you don't like going to a lot of crowds. If your friend just mentions, oh, I want to go out, like, let's have fun. Even though you have reservations about it, you'll do it in order to make that person happy. Another symptom that I can think off the top of my head, another symptom is that you feel, you feel this insane need, right, to make other people happy, okay? And when you don't, you have an extremely adverse reaction to that. So if you're unable to make someone happy, you find yourself depressed, sad, anxious, in a really bad mental state. You can't achieve what you were trying to do.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Actually, to add on to that, I realized comparing yourself to other people can also be a problem, especially nowadays. I feel like it's worse because of social media, whereby I now look at my life and then I look at someone else's life, and then I now start comparing myself. Now I'm taking these people on social media, or I'm doing this just for likes, and the pressure I put on myself obviously will have like a mental problem. You have a mental breakdown, you get a burnout, whatever they call it, and that's like one of the things I think that is a symptom of people pleasing, constantly comparing yourself and not actually comparing yourself with yourself or being your own competition. Because especially with young people, I feel like, gosh, we are always like, someone else has this, I also want it, and it's a problem. It's a problem, especially in this generation. And yeah, I guess to those of you who are watching, if you feel you're going through such a phase whereby you constantly comparing yourself, or what Joy said, that you don't listen to your inner self, then that's just like one of the problems. So in terms of social media, what do you think as young people we can sort of do to reduce the pressure of constantly wanting to become like other people or wanting to do things for social media? What do you think we can do as young people? Maybe overall in general or as an individual, what do you think one can do actually to just stop and breathe and focus on social media
Yeah,
pressure
you
and
see,
ease
I
yourself
believe
instead?
that.
Okay, so we are back again. There was a bit of problem with the network, and then hopefully my guest will be able to join us again so that we can hear because her audio was a bit of a problem, and I really apologize for that. So we're just gonna wait for her. Okay, there she is. Welcome back.
Can you hear me now?
I don't even know what happened. I can hear you finally now.
Okay, Gab, that was a bit crazy.
Yeah, okay, so let me just repeat my question. I hope I remember it. Okay, so I was asking you that in terms, in relation to social media, how can young people, or perhaps as a young individual, work towards not pressurizing themselves so much? Because I'm pretty sure we all know that social media is fake. Because I can still post like a Lamborghini today, and you all will think about a Lamborghini, and yet it's all for the likes because I am a people pleaser, as an example. So, what probably do you think are some of the things that we can consider? Since you say sometimes it's a psychological problem, so what are some of the things that they can consider, especially in relation to social media?
Okay, so I believe that any change that needs to happen needs to begin with an individual. So I think it's all about
Okay.
change on a personal level. So I feel like social media has been here for a while now, and it's gonna be here forever.
Yeah.
Even though it might change,
Yes.
shapes and forms, and it's always gonna be some sort of propaganda. There's always gonna be some sort of manipulation or whatever by society in general. And the only way to combat that, only way to not find yourself a victim of going with the crowd is, I guess I could say, finding your identity. I guess it sounds cliche, but I feel like as long as you're self-aware enough to know the kind of person you want to be, the person you are, who you came
Yeah.
from, where you want to go, who you want to be. The moment you have that, no matter what distractions come in the way, no matter who's trying to tell you what and who to be, it won't change your inner thoughts. Because yes, we'll get swept up in social media, and yes, we might, want to post something and be terrified that our post won't reach 100 likes, for example. But as long as,
Yeah.
as long as we have a strong identity of ourselves, I don't think all those really extreme consequences of social media will affect us because we know who we are at the end of the day.
Okay, what about those people who actually struggle to find their identity? Because I've seen programs on TV whereby they just struggle. How can
Mhm.
they how can they find their identity? And also, do you think therapy helps as well?
Mhm. Okay, so I feel like identity is like a different thing for everyone because you can find your identity in the people around you. You can find your identity in your friends, in your family, by the connections you make as a human, the connections you make as a person will directly
Yeah.
help you become an individual, help you recognize traits in yourself that you got, for example, from your parents, or traits that are different of yours from your friends. So that's one aspect of identity. Another aspect of identity are things like beliefs um, and thought processes, and those things can be changed at an early age with either mental stimulation or abuse or any kind of like mental intervention. And for that aspect of
Yeah.
identity, therapy is actually great because if you don't know how to be in touch with your memories or your emotions, going to therapy will help you unlock that because they're trained professionals who are trained, like I said, to help you uncover and unpeel all those layers of manipulation until you can find, I guess, who you were before everything else kicked in. So yeah, identity, it's found through relationships, it's found through the people around you, and it's found through being able to access your mental processes. And if you need help with that, you obviously have to contact a psychiatrist or psychologist.
Yeah, and of course, those relationships need to be healthy, because sometimes some of these friendships that we fall into can actually now turn you into that people pleaser, or you lose yourself in the process. So, do you mind sharing any experiences that you personally had, maybe scenarios or anything in the process growing up until now as a young adult?
Can you please repeat the end of your question?
Oh, okay. Let me just repeat the question. I was asking if you don't mind sharing some of the experiences that you went through and some of the things you did to please people, be it friends or schoolmates or anything, since at a young age, just up until now as a young adult.
Okay, well, thanks for asking me to expose myself. But obviously, as as a young woman who grew up in Africa, there's always a certain level of expectation, I guess you'd say, that we inherit from our grandmothers and our mothers. A certain way of how to speak, how to act, how to dress, and that's compounded with religion. Religion, will dictate how to act in church, who to speak to, what you should do. And then that's another layer on top of that is now society. Society being the people around you closest to you. Your friends. Your friends grew up differently from you, and they have different experiences, so their version of right and wrong is different from yours. So now that's another added layer. You're like, okay, maybe I should do that. And I feel like for me personally, the biggest factor in me trying to please people was all of those, but the biggest one, I guess, I could say pop culture. Yes. So whether it is magazines, books, movies, and TV. Okay, so again, like I said, young women growing up in Africa, most of the shows except SABC 1, 2, and 3, most of the shows are Disney Channel things where most of the cast are white girls and white. And exactly, they're all talented, they can all sing and dance, and they're all skinny and beautiful, right? Let me put quotations on beautiful, because that's the that's the beauty standard. So seeing that and being told that this is what beautiful is, having a young and impressionable mind, I thought, okay, well, the only way to be beautiful is to have straight hair. The only way to be beautiful is to have fairer skin. And the only way to be beautiful is to have a beautiful boyfriend, So growing up, exactly. So growing up, that definitely was like a really important factor that made me want to please people, that made me want to please everyone. I wanted everyone to think I was a pretty popular girl. I also wanted to be Gabriella from High School Musical, I wanted that for myself. And obviously that's not real, and high school is nothing like High School Musical. So I guess it was just like a really wide awakening. But as a young adult, to go back to your question, as a young adult, I feel like I find the things that are most stimulating to me, the things that are most affecting the way I tend to please people, is goals and being around people. For example, now that I'm in medical school, I'm now in varsity, being around people that have different goals. Well, we have similar goals, right? We all want to be doctors at the end of the day. So having that, it's kind of like a good type of way, though. If I'm seeing people study, I also want to study with them. It's kind of like peer pressure, but the opposite way from how they taught us when we were growing up. Being in an environment where everyone has similar goals, everyone wants one thing, and being in that same environment, you get swept up in all of it, and you also want that for yourself. So that I feel like that's what's happening right now. And obviously, another thing, my relationship with God. I'm a Christian, so I want to please him above other people. So that's I guess it's not really people pleasing, but I want to please him. So yeah.
Yeah. You touched about religion, and do you feel like sometimes when it comes to religion, it becomes a little too much? Because I mean, I also grew up in a Christian background whereby, as a woman, you're expected to dress in a certain way, and I personally feel that probably sometimes it's a way of people pleasing because now it's like you're dressing for people because they always ask you a question, what will people say if you're wearing that short dress to the mall and you bump into a church person? You know, that kind of a thing. So do you think that religion also plays a role in controlling us to be people pleasers?
Okay, yeah, definitely. Because controversial. But I think, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so this is a bit controversial, but I think religion was created by people and faith was created by God. So faith, the belief of believing in God, and faith, your beliefs, all of that was created by God. That connection with human and God is created by Him.
Yeah.
The religion itself, as in the rules set into place, church teachings and church ways were created by people. Yes, they were created by God-fearing people, but they were created by human beings. So religion, I feel like, is imperfect. Faith is steady and perfect because God created it in its essence. It's good. But religion can be manipulated. Religion can be used as a way of controlling people, as a way of trying to get people to agree with one way of doing things, to agree with a certain way of doing things. Because as we know, different churches have different teachings, have different ways of life. So if you think about it, and when you pick a certain church, you're picking a certain aspect of people pleasing. You're accepting their rules and their ways of going things. As long as you agree with it, then that's perfect because you agree with that and you've chosen that. But I feel like when you're grown, when you grow up in a Christian background, when you grow up in a certain church, in a certain environment, and you can't choose what you want to believe in, yes, you end up doing things because everyone else is doing them, because your parents said you should do it, because the pastors or the priests said you should do it. So growing up in a religious setting is pretty shaky, controversial, and yes, definitely.
Okay. So, would you regard yourself as a people pleaser, a recovering people pleaser, or you don't please people at all?
Oh, okay. That's a very okay. I would like to say the third one, even though I know it's a bit incorrect. I don't think I like pleasing people. I feel like I do it, often I do it to please the people around me, the people I care about. But I'm not a person who, how do I say, I don't find the need to constantly make other people feel better or comfortable. I don't like comparing myself to others. I like none of the symptoms really stick as well to me. So I'm not really a people pleaser, but I can be by choice for the right people.
Okay. So, at what point or at what stage in your life do you realize that this whole people pleasing thing doesn't fulfill me? Like, it's a waste of time. Because, personally speaking, I know, especially for me, I would say in primary, I always, because I was always this quiet and reserved person, and then I would get certain comments from my peers or anything, and then now suddenly I start doing certain things to please them, maybe a little bit high school as well. So at what point did you, at what point or at what stage did you realize that people pleasing doesn't work?
No, I agree with you 100%. Primary school was my high school musical days. It was the days when I was obsessed with Disney. So yes, those are the days I was trying to please everyone. But I think it was like about halfway through high school. You're now a teenager. You're now around people from different backgrounds. you're now kind of growing as a person, seeing what you want and what you don't want, seeing what works and what doesn't. But the main, I guess I could say, turning point for me was when I realized there are much better and more important things to do in my life than for me to constantly be trying to please other people, constantly trying to make other people happy. I think it all depends on what you want, and as the moment your goals and what you're doing don't align, that becomes a turning point. Because obviously, if you don't really have any goals and you don't really know what you want to do with yourself, people pleasing is easy because you're there for other people, not for yourself. But when you have goals, like me, when I started making my goals and I realized if I want to achieve my goals, I need to stop doing this, then that's when it changed.
And that's needed because we live in a generation whereby when just touching phone, whatever you see can control your emotions, it can control your mental state, and before you know, you fall into the trap of wanting to for all the time. Okay, so I know you kind of touched on it earlier on in the conversation, but then I just wanted to talk about some of the things, maybe the main things that one can do or utilize in order to slowly get out of this people pleasing cocoon, whatever it is, because probably there's someone out there who's doing it, and then they know that it's a bad thing, they're trying to get out. So do you have any suggestions or points whereby you feel like if you do this, it could help you to actually get out of the whole people-pleasing situation?
Okay, I think the most important one is set boundaries. If you're someone who constantly tries to make time for others, or who, if you know you don't have any time but you're doing things for other people, if you don't want to go to an event but you always go because you can't say no, set boundaries. If you know you can't say no, try to avoid the situation, or find a way that works for you. If you don't like lying, then don't lie. Just say a different truth, that I would like to come because I do want to come, but right now I'm not feeling this kind of way. Don't force it and try to become a independent, strong person at first, because that's not going to work if that's not your personality. So start off with the small things. Start off with telling people how you feel in the smallest of instances. For example, if someone makes a joke and you say, that was funny, but I don't really like the fact that the joke was at my expense, or something like that. So slowly but surely, the more you set boundaries, the more you'll be able to find that difference between you and other people.
Yeah. Okay. I also want to add on to what you said, that in the process of setting boundaries, you can also start small, because I feel like in any situation, let's look at realistic life situations. For example, people who have drug addiction problems or any type of emotional problems, you need to start small. So in the case whereby you are a people pleaser, I think it's very important to start somewhere. Start small, step by step. If you have problems with setting boundaries, then start there and don't put pressure on yourself, because you can crash and then go back to the same situation. Yeah. I think you also talked about setting boundaries and priorities. Avoid making excuses. That's another point I wrote here. Because I feel like sometimes we like making excuses. You gave an example whereby your friends constantly ask you, "Oh, let's go out," and in your head, you're not making an excuse. "Oh, I'm still young. I'm still in varsity. I need to enjoy life." But you've got like a pile of assignments, and tomorrow you want to be a doctor, as an example. Yeah. So, and then the last one I have is realize that you have in life, besides whatever you're going through, we all have a choice. If you choose that you want to get out of this people-pleasing phase, it's your own choice. If you choose that you don't want to, that's also your choice. So, I don't know, do you have anything else that you want to share with us regarding people-pleasing that perhaps you did not mention during the conversation?
Just to add on to your last point about always having a choice, I feel like people don't always realize they have a choice when all their decisions are made by other people. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Because oftentimes we cannot differentiate our own thoughts from the thoughts that people have put inside our heads. But it's never too late. It's never too late to change that if you want to. It's never too late to go for anything if you want it enough. You know, no one's stopping you.
Yeah.
So you can become a recovering people pleaser if you want.
Yeah, definitely. Any additions? And those of you who are watching, if you have any questions, I think we have about like 3 people watching. If they have any questions, you can ask. I don't know, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask or additions?
I want to ask you, host, are you a people pleaser? Are you recovering, or are you not one?
I would like to believe that I'm recovering because I've been very conscious about it. Because before, I used to care about what people think. Mostly, it's I used to care mostly about what people think. So during this phase of my life, as I'm growing older, as a young adult, whatever I do it to please myself and to be comfortable. So I would like to rate myself as a recovering people pleaser because it's not something very easy. And that's why I actually wanted to have this conversation because I feel like I am at a stage where I can talk about it and perhaps we can help someone else out there because we do go through these things because of different backgrounds or friendships or whatever that is that we are going through. So I think I'm a recovering people pleaser. Yeah, I am. Because I'm always conscious. Whatever I do it to make sure that I'm comfortable. If another person is not comfortable, that's their problem. But
Exactly.
I need to make myself yeah.
Exactly. That's good. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. So those of you who have just joined, our conversation is about to end, but if you have any questions, please ask us anything that you'd like to ask. I think. Yeah. Okay, there are no questions yet. I don't know if they have any questions. Because now it's like 2 more people just joined now. Okay. I don't think there are any questions. So I think that's it regarding people pleasers. I hope people enjoyed. I will post this video on YouTube and I just hope it'll create awareness because as much as probably other people are talking about, I think it's also important to be that extra person to create awareness and to tell people about these things and everything. So thank you so much for coming on the show. I think you appreciate it so much. And thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. It was very helpful, even though the network wanted to play with our minds, but we did it, we made it.
Exactly, we did. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. You're welcome. And enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Bye.